Imagine yourself in the heart of medieval Europe, a world where the rhythm of life is dictated by the tolling of church bells and the changing seasons. The air, thick with the smells of wood smoke and damp earth, carries the sounds of blacksmiths hammering, children playing, and the distant bleating of sheep. Faith is the bedrock of existence, and the omnipresent hand of the Church guides your days. Yet, beneath this familiar tapestry lies a constant awareness of fragility. Illnesses sweep through communities with frightening regularity, leaving trails of suffering and loss. Life is a precarious balance, and the threat of disease is an unwelcome, yet ever-present companion. Within this context of common ailments and fears, whispers begin to circulate, hushed tones speaking of a particularly dreaded sickness, one that inspires not just fear of physical suffering, but also the chilling specter of social ruin. It begins so subtly, almost as a phantom touch on your skin. Perhaps you notice a patch on your arm, slightly paler than the rest, or maybe on your leg. It feels smooth, unremarkable, except when you touch it, there's a curious lack of sensation. You might prick it with a needle and no pain registers. At first, you likely dismiss it, a trick of the light, a minor irritation that will surely fade. Life in these times is filled with minor scrapes and ailments, and your body has learned to endure. However, this patch persists. It doesn't itch, doesn't hurt, simply remains, a silent anomaly on your otherwise familiar flesh. Perhaps another appears, or the first one grows slightly larger. A faint discoloration might accompany the numbness, a subtle paling or a coppery hue that doesn't seem to tan with the sun. These early signs are insidious, easy to overlook in the daily grind of survival. Yet a seed of unease begins to sprout within you. As the days and weeks pass, these unsettling changes might become more noticeable. Not just to you, but to those around you. A concerned spouse might point out the unusual pallor of your skin, or a friend might remark on your seemingly indifferent reaction to a hot ember that brushed your hand. You might find yourself becoming more attuned to your body, constantly checking for new marks or changes in sensation. A tingling in your fingers or toes, a persistent feeling of pins and needles could further fuel your growing anxiety. You might try simple remedies, herbs and poultices passed down through generations, hoping to banish these strange occurrences. You might even consult the local wise woman who offers folk cures and prayers, but without any real understanding of the affliction that is taking root within you. The subtle shifts in your physical being are mirrored by a growing unease in the reactions of those around you. You notice the hesitant glances, the hushed conversations that cease abruptly as you approach, the almost imperceptible widening of eyes as someone catches sight of the mark on your skin. A subtle distance begins to form, an invisible barrier erected by fear and uncertainty. The moment the vague fear crystallizes into a terrifying certainty is one you will never forget. Perhaps you overhear a conversation in the village, the word leprosy whispered with a mixture of dread and pity. The symptoms described, the numb patches, the discolorations, chillingly mirror your own. Or maybe, if you are among the fortunate few who can read, you might stumble upon an old medical text in a monastery or a wealthy patron's library. Its crude illustrations and stark descriptions painting a grim picture, while the understanding of this disease is limited, with some texts even suggesting tests involving urine, pulse, blood, and hair. The visual evidence of your own body aligns with the horrifying accounts. The realization is like a physical blow, leaving you breathless and filled with a profound sense of dread. The social implications of this dreaded ailment are immediately apparent. The prevailing belief, deeply ingrained in the religious fabric of society, casts leprosy as a divine punishment, a visible manifestation of sin. This interpretation carries a weight far beyond the physical suffering, marking you as morally tainted and a danger to the community. Even formal pronouncements from the Church, such as those from the Third Lateran Council in 1179, decree that anyone even suspected of having leprosy should be shunned and forced to wear coverings, solidifying the social exclusion. The reactions of your loved ones are a painful confirmation of this societal condemnation. Fear of contagion, a primal instinct in a time when the mechanisms of disease are poorly understood, mixes with pity and revulsion in their eyes. The warmth and intimacy you once shared begin to cool, replaced by a hesitant distance. You might be asked to leave your home, your family, torn between their love for you and their fear for their own well-being. Interactions become strained, conducted from afar. The touch of a loved one, now a forbidden luxury. The life you once knew, the familiar comfort of your community, begins to recede, replaced by the chilling isolation of the condemned. If your misfortune occurs during the peak of leprosy in Europe, between the 11th and 14th centuries, there is a chance that a leprosarium exists within reach. The journey to this place of isolation is often a solitary and harrowing experience, shunned by fellow travelers. You might walk for days, relying on the charity of strangers who leave food and water at a safe distance. The landscape itself seems to mirror your inner turmoil, the roads winding through desolate fields and shadowy forests, each step taking you further away from the life you once knew. Perhaps a reluctant family member, burdened by obligation and fear, accompanies you part of the way, their grief and apprehension palpable in their silence. Or maybe the local priest or authorities, eager to contain the spread of the disease, arrange for your transport, their faces grim with a mixture of pity and duty. As you approach the leprosarium, often situated on the fringes of towns or near major travel routes, the sight of its stark walls or the cluster of simple dwellings evokes a sense of finality. This is the place where you will likely spend the remainder of your days, separated from the world, a living ghost in the eyes of society. In a symbolic act that underscores this separation, you might even be subjected to a ritual burial, a mass said over you as if you were already dead to the world. Stepping through the gates of the leprosarium is like entering another realm, a world defined by shared suffering and isolation. The air is heavy with the scent of illness and despair, mingled with the faint aroma of herbs used in attempts to soothe the afflicted. You see others like yourself, their bodies bearing the visible marks of the disease, pale, numb patches of skin, perhaps more advanced deformities in the extremities. Despite the hardship, a sense of community often prevails within these walls. Bound by a common fate, the inhabitants offer each other solace and support. Daily life is structured, often revolving around prayer and religious services held in a detached chapel. Cleanliness is emphasized, with attempts made to provide wholesome food and wash clothes regularly. Resources permitting, this structured environment, sometimes resembling a monastic order, offers a semblance of order in the face of physical deterioration. You might find yourself assigned simple tasks, tending to the gardens or assisting those more severely afflicted, providing a sense of purpose in your otherwise confined existence. Yet, the physical realities of the disease are ever present. The lesions might worsen. The loss of sensation can lead to injuries you don't even feel. And in severe cases, blindness can steal the remaining light from your world, despite the attempts at care. The leprosarium is a place where the slow, relentless progression of the disease is a constant reminder of your mortality. Even within the isolation of the leprosarium, the need for connection with the outside world persists. Inhabitants often relied on begging for alms or trading simple crafts to supplement the meager provisions provided. The distinctive grey coat and scarlet hat worn by lepers made them easily identifiable as they ventured beyond the hospital precincts, serving as both a marker of their condition and a plea for charity. The sound of a clapper or bell, carried to warn others of their approach, became a familiar sound in the surrounding areas, a poignant reminder of their presence on the fringes of society. Visits from family and friends, though perhaps less frequent over time, offer fleeting moments of connection with the world you have left behind. These encounters are often bittersweet, filled with a mixture of compassion and a palpable fear of contagion. The knowledge that you are loved but also seen as a source of danger creates a complex emotional landscape. The psychological burden of living with leprosy and the accompanying social stigma is immense. The feeling of being marked, both physically and morally, can lead to profound shame and despair. The isolation, the separation from loved ones and community, can take a heavy toll on your mental well-being. Yet, in this challenging environment, faith often plays a crucial role. For some, the affliction is seen as a divine trial, an opportunity for spiritual growth and repentance. The suffering endured on earth might even be viewed as a form of purgatory, potentially leading to salvation. The leprosarium itself, often centered around a chapel, provides a space for prayer and contemplation, offering solace and a sense of spiritual community. This religious framework can provide a sense of meaning and purpose in the face of a debilitating and stigmatizing illness. However, for others, the experience might lead to bitterness and a feeling of abandonment, questioning the fairness of their fate. The progression of leprosy is often slow but inexorable. Over time, the physical manifestations of the disease become more pronounced. The initial numb patches can develop into disfiguring lesions, and the loss of sensation can lead to repeated injuries and infections that go unnoticed. The body, once a familiar vessel, can become increasingly alien and unreliable. In the absence of effective treatments, the disease follows its natural course, leading to increasing physical limitations and suffering. The genetic makeup of the bacteria responsible for leprosy, Mycobacterium leprae, remained remarkably consistent throughout this period, meaning that medieval individuals had no inherent biological advantage in fighting off the infection. The eventual outcome for many is a slow decline, marked by increasing disability and vulnerability, culminating in death within the confines of the leprosarium or in isolated circumstances. Looking back on this life, marked by the unwelcome arrival and relentless progression of leprosy, the profound impact of this disease on every aspect of your existence is undeniable. The physical suffering, the social isolation, and the psychological toll are interwoven threads in a tapestry of hardship. The societal attitudes, deeply rooted in religious interpretations and fears of contagion, shaped not only your own experience, but also the way the world perceived and treated you. Living with leprosy in medieval Europe during its peak was not merely a medical condition. It was a social death, a journey into isolation, and a testament to the complex interplay of disease, faith, and fear in a bygone era. Story 2. You awake before dawn in the simple stone cottage you share with your wife and 2 small children. The wind rattles the thin shutters of your one window, and the air is brisk with the promise of morning. You slide out of bed and mutter the sign of the cross before lighting a rag soaked in tallow for the hearth. The kindling crackles as you blow gently, and the half-lit room gradually warms. Dust motes dance in the lamplight, and the scent of last night's barley stew still lingers faintly. Outside, roosters begin their distant crowing. Your family cottage stands on a patch of land held by the local lord's manor. Neighbors who are herders, spinners, or petty farmers live nearby. Beyond your backfields stretch the communal ploughlands and pastures, where oxen have broken winter frost. Farther off, on the hill, you make out the dark silhouette of the parish chapel, its single bell tower faint against the grey sky. In an hour, you will walk there for matins, the first prayer of the day. This is the rhythm of your life. Dawn prayers, sunrise chores, a noon rest, evening prayer and bed. In the dawn chill, you and your children gather around the rough wooden table for breakfast. Your wife ladles thick porridge made of oats and barley into clay bowls. Small, half-vitrified loaves of rye bread sit at the center, and a pot of weak ale brewed from last year's grain stands ready. The children, still sleepy, clasp their hands, and you all say a quick prayer of thanks. Today, as every Sunday morning, your wife has washed your brown wool tunic and cloak and helped your daughter fold a simple hooded frock for church. Your 6-year-old son pulls on a too long pair of woolen hose, and your 8-year-old girl carefully ties the linen cord around her dress. They smile at you when you whisper a joke, though both know this morning is solemn and regular work will pause. With a final nod to the hearth where the fire now burns low, you pick up a hunk of bread and sip the bitter ale. The bread is coarse and seedy, the ale almost as thick as soup, but it fills the belly and wards off the cold. Around the table, you and your wife exchange a few quiet words about the weather and the tasks for the day. It is harvest season. The wheat fields must be cut before the rain, and the cabbages and turnips in the garden must be gathered. You will lead the oxen behind the heavy plow this morning, just as you did through spring sowing. In return, your wife will gather eggs, mind the children, and bake more bread from last week's grain. In these simple rituals, there is comfort and purpose. Life feels normal and full. After the morning repast, you secure a leather purse to your belt and call the children. They follow as you walk out through the arched doorway into morning light. The courtyard smells of straw and wet earth. Chickens cluck for attention, and goats are bleating for breakfast grain. The dew sparkles on the thatch roof of the barns. You sling a short scythe over your shoulder, and with the rest of the village work team, step out to the fields. It is a clear, cool morning. Beyond the fields, hills roll toward the sun, soft and green. A few clouds sail pale across the sky. At the field's edge, your group gathers around an ox-drawn plow. Jean the shepherd's son and 2 cousins from the next farm stand ready, each holding a sturdy wooden yoke. You set your boots in the earth and with a grunt, lift the plowshare into the rich brown soil. The first furrow turns up clods and worms. As the plow turns the earth, you exchange brief greetings with the others. Jean asks if your harvest was good last year. You shrug and grin, knowing the crops were modest after a bad spring storm. Another woman passes and asks if the potatoes are sprouting well in the garden. Each of you says little beyond polite answers, since dawn chores keep your hands busy. The heavy linen of your tunic sticks slightly on your back as you work. Sweat beads on your forehead and trickles down your neck. You pull a cap over your hair and avert your mind to remembering prayers you learned in childhood. By mid-morning, the sun has risen and warms your shoulders. Clouds cast occasional shadows over the grain. As promised, you stop by noon under a tall poplar tree. In its shade, the air is gentler. From your satchel, your wife has passed out round crusts of rye bread, salted herring, thin slices of pork fat, and a dried cheese. You and the other laborers sit in the grass. Church bells toll from the chapel to mark midday. Roosters caw in the yards beyond. Your hands are dirty and smelled faintly of animal, but with joy you tear bread apart and dip it in oil or cheese. The sharp salt tang of herring and the sweet grass of ale quells your hunger. You wipe your hands on the coarse cloth of your breeches. All around, oxen also rest, tails flicking flies. A neighbor cracks a joke about the Lord's laziness in leaving the gate open to the pasture last night. He chuckles with others while you smile thinly, knowing the Lord himself will never notice. After the quick meal, you refill your leather bottle at the stream with cold water. You settle a short prayer under your breath, asking God to bless the earth for yield. The father of the village, tall and stern, blesses everyone in turn and warns of a storm front coming at week's end. Soon the group reassembles to finish the plow. With a coordinated heave, you guide the oxen onward, carving deep, furrow after furrow. The work is hard but familiar. Each evening after supper, you and your neighbors will toast to a safe day and perhaps a modest harvest once the stalks are cut. On Sunday afternoon, after 2 more morning plows, you and the others break from the fields. The farmhand who sharpens hoes offers you a new whetstone, and you examine it. It is good and finely ground, and you plan to sharpen your sickle tonight. At dusk you return home. As the sun sinks, orange rays stretch through your little living room. Your wife is outside hauling water and stacking wood. One of your neighbors, Gregory, sits on your porch holding a jug of cider. He is thin and walks with a slight limp you recall from old war wounds. Gregory catches sight of you and stands quietly without greeting. Without a word, he pours the fragrant spiced cider into 2 wooden cups and offers one to you. At first, you accept the drink in surprise. He has neither asked nor demanded anything, which is kind. You notice gray in his beard and worry in his eyes. You sip the sweet, tangy brew as golden dusk settles. Between you sits a stale loaf of rye. You break off pieces to share. Nobody speaks. Only the clink of wooden cups and the soft hum of evening prayers drifting from the chapel break the silence. The warm cider eases the aching in your chest from a day of work. It also brings a strange quiet. For a moment, you are thankful. This small gesture of bread and cider by Gregory's hand reminds you that you are not alone in these small moments. He tilts his head toward the chapel bell. In a few minutes, it will toll for vespers. Then he stands, nods once solemnly, and departs down the dirt road. You linger a moment, cross yourself, and give thanks in silence. Night is falling now. You eat supper with your family in candlelight. Tonight the stew is mostly vegetables with just a small piece of salted lamb. You hand your daughter part of a stew-drenched potato and quiet your son as he chases a kitten around your legs. After the simple meal, you and your family kneel by the fireplace. You recite the Lord's Prayer and a hymn to the Virgin Mary. Your wife murmurs the words in Old French, while you add your own prayers in Latin. You bless your children and send them to bed. Your wife helps you lay out tomorrow's work clothes. You inhale the smoky aroma of the dying fire and listen to the night settle over the thatch and barley fields. In the small hours you drift to sleep. You have always been in good health up to now. A solid farm worker with calloused hands and thick hair. Sickness visits others, not you. The next morning, you repeat the ritual of dawn and rising sun. You feed the goats, fix a bit of porridge, and head out to cut wheat with the sickle. You bale the rye, carry bundles to the barn, unload grain. Until now, life has been ordinary as any man's, weighed down with work but full of faith and family. But this morning, as the sun climbs high, something strange changes. You are bending over at the well, dipping a bucket of water. The cold splash on your hands is refreshing. As you raise the bucket, a faint tingling pricks your left palm where the pipe scrubber you used rests under your thumb. On that palm, you see a small pale patch on the skin, like a spot of clay. The surrounding skin is a bit red. The spot looks almost like a half-healed burn or scar. Except it wasn't there yesterday. You run water over your hands. The patch doesn't flake off. You press the center of it with your finger. It itches faintly, but there is no real pain. Yet something about the patch unsettles you. You swallow, brush your fingers hurriedly on your pants, and fill the bucket completely. For the moment, you dismiss it as nothing serious. You share the bucket with your children and toss some water to the pigs. But in the back of your mind, a whisper speaks. Someone once said that kind of spot could be the sign of the wasting. Over the next couple of days, that oddity on your palm transforms. The next morning, there are 2 pale patches on your forearms edged in red. They move a little when you bend your elbow. They no longer itch but feel numb. When you pour ale into a clay jug the 3rd morning, the handle presses against one of the patches and you barely notice. Yet you do note, with creeping concern, that a 3rd spot has appeared along your jawbone. Itching now, it looks like a sunburn. You cup water over it and it stings softly. Back at home, you hastily scrape the thickening stew from your palms, hoping your wife doesn't notice the rash at dinner. She hasn't mentioned anything, but you sense her looking longer than usual when you slice bread. Her eyes are kind but uncertain. Later, she offers to fetch lavender oil from Toland, the healer's widow. You quietly accept. In the evening, by firelight, you show Toland your hands and jaw. She frowns, dipping a linen rag in oil and rubbing it gently over each lesion, then sprinkles healer's herbs on top. Toland works quietly and speaks softly in Latin prayer, reminding you to ring a bell if anyone comes near. She ties your waist belt to hold the bell and small alms bowl she provides. Ring it when you approach, she says gently, in case someone must step away. You comply and slip the modest bell over your hip. You hope it is only precaution. Despite these measures, over the following week, your body changes more. Pale patches on your arms grow inches wide, blotches spreading slowly across your skin. A strange sting rises from your fingertips when the sun warms them, as if the nerves are waking in pain. Small cracks form on the tips of your fingers and toes. You bandage an opening at a corner of your eye where the skin peels. Cold nights chill you deep, and you cough when the autumn wind blows through the fields. You become aware of every sound and glance. In church the next Sunday, you return as usual. Sunlight through the windows casts colored squares on the pews. You kneel and cross yourself as the priest recites Vespers, but you sense a few eyes on you when the priest hands out small pieces of bread for the host. A woman next to you drops her gaze and mutters a short prayer for others. She clutches her small rosary as you come forward. You wonder if the cross stitched on your shoulder or your cough has given you away. But no one says anything. For now, you pray as always, voicing the Latin responses, though with greater effort and shame. At home afterward, the bailiff Cornelier arrives as if from nowhere, leaning on a curved walking stick. His face is carved with years of hard duty. You are unharnessing your ox when he says, "You should not be working these fields anymore." His words are blunt. You blink. Your knees feel like soft dough. The Lord has been informed. You must leave the manor and let your wife take charge of the land. Take what you can carry. The rest is to belong to the next tenant. At dawn tomorrow, the cross will be given to you. Prepare to go to St. Lazarus's house as the bishop has decreed. He does not raise his voice. He does not scold or lecture. He just states the law. You know it, of course, that decree from a council in Rome requiring separate houses for all lepers who are considered dead to the world. The moment he uttered cross, your mouth went dry. You nod. You finish your chores wordlessly. The oxen are cared for by others now. At noon, you sit with family at the table again. Your children stare, and your wife's eyes have a sheen of tears. But neither you nor anyone else speaks of Cornelius' news. Only the fireplace crackles. By nightfall, the cross awaits you by the door. A simple black wooden cross on a length of rope. You pack a small bundle, some bread, cheese, your father's old scapular, embroidered with Saint Lazarus and the iron bowl for arms. You fold a clean shirt from a chest, hoping the sisters will like a gift, and buckle your belt. You tie the cross around your shoulders, and from it dangles a small clapper bell. You slip the bell's cord over your coat. The change clangs hollowly at each step. Before you leave, your wife slips quietly into your arms. You hold each other in the dim candlelight, both weeping softly. She leads the children outside to kiss your cheeks through the wooden gate. You bless them. Ut puri custodiantur amalo, that the children may be kept from evil. At the cold oak door, you step out into the night, the last in your village to bear that burlap sack on your back and know it's for good. The journey begins in silence. The bailiff Cornelier leads you by lantern, and another bailiff brings up the rear. The path skirts a hedgerow. You hear frogs croak in ditches and see stars above. Gregory's lantern flickers behind you, but no one speaks. You carry your alms bowl, clattering at your side, and the cross rests heavy between your shoulder blades. Soon the bailiff stops at a brook and nods. You remember scripture, "Be not afraid, for I am with you." Walking on, you enter the next village by dawn. By then, the sunrise has turned the sky pink. You glance over your shoulder. Smoke curls above the cottage chimneys of home. A few villagers are emerging to morning mass. You see them, cross yourself rapidly, turn away and keep walking. The bailiffs do not look back at you. By morning's end, you crest a small ridge. In the distance, you make out an enclave of stone buildings walled apart from any village, with a little chapel spire and fields tended by ox teams. Two brothers in brown habits wave at you from outside. This is the hospital of St. Lazarus, called a Lazare house, one of many set up through France to house the afflicted. You and Cornelier exchange a few last silent words. Then he touches your shoulder and turns away. A gate is thrown open. You step inside. Immediately you notice everything changes. The air smells of herbaceous ale and boiled cabbage and smoke from peat fires. The sky seems brighter outside the walls. The first thing a bearded man in simple tunic does is clasp your elbow gently and guide you inside. Brother Martin, one of the hospital brothers, greets you with a calm smile. Behind him stand two novices and a sister. He bows his head slightly. "Welcome home," he says. You find you have no words, though your throat tightens. You can only bow back. He shows you to a small cell, a wattle hut with a shuttered window. It has a straw-filled pallet in the corner, a wooden chair and rough chest. Your only possessions will be these and the few things you brought. He hands you a humble robe of coarse wool. It is starker than your farmer's coat, nearly black, with a hood but no hooded sleeves. He ties the same black cross you were given around your neck and lifts the bell off your belt. After a few steps, he stops and hands you the bell's rope. "Use it to announce yourself," he says softly. "It is as it was given, part of your life now." He then shows you where the kitchen is, where water is drawn, and the chapel. He speaks kindly but calmly, as if sending off a neighbor to the fields. You bow and mumble thanks, barely understanding that this is now your life. After he leaves, you unpack the small bundle. You hang the scapula by the pallet and pour a cup of water from the well outside. Your hands still burn with the tinny memory of the bell's clapper. Through the open door, you see others in tattered robes. A gaunt old man pushing a wheelbarrow of turnips. Two women leading sheep between pens. They all wear similar sackcloth and simple wooden crosses. Each moves slowly, deliberately. They glance at you kindly, and some nod. You must call this your home now. Night comes early, but you lie on your pallet under a thin wool blanket, thinking of home. A sister, Sister Imelda, comes to your cell. She brings a small earthen bowl and rubs a poultice on the joints of your sorest hand. Then she lights a single candle, a blessed vigil light given by a church patron, and places it on a wooden table by your bed. She kneels and makes the sign of the cross with you. "Rest now," she whispers. "Tomorrow, at dawn, you will join the others for prayer." You close your eyes, When morning light filters through the shutter, you awaken to the toll of a small bronze bell. Brother Martin stands in the cell doorway. Along with a dozen others, you shuffle to a simple chapel. It has plain stone walls, a wooden altar without decoration, and high, narrow windows. You take a place on a long oak bench. The priest, the local parish priest, comes once a month to say Mass here, stands at the lectern, reading in Latin. The others around you follow the service precisely as in town. You kneel when they kneel, cross yourselves in the same spots. You realize many words you have memorized. No one objects. The priest offers communion quietly, sliding a small wafer on the tongue with a pair of tweezers. Each morning after prayers, tasks are assigned. At dawn on the second day, you help feed the hospital's garden livestock with a young man named Gilam. After winter, the garden, peas, beans, onions, needs fresh manure. You grasp a pitchfork together and pile cow dung into wheelbarrows. It is hard work for weak arms, but the dread in your chest at how easily these men accept it steadies you. In the fading winter light, the smell of earth and animals feels normal. Those around you work silently, each aware of their own pain and purpose. The food here is plain and plain. Breakfast porridge of oats and chopped vegetables, a crust of bread at midday, a small serving of onion soup. A small loaf is set at your place at table with the others. A sister crosses herself and divides a larger loaf among you after saying grace in a whisper. The stew is coarse, but as you swallow it, you feel yourself growing a bit stronger than before your arrival. In the morning's chill, you will lift the bale of hay for the horse or stack wood by the hearth, all with your ragged hands. Sleep here is deep and dreamless in the straw, with the drip of water from dawn dew waking you. Days turn to weeks. At work, you find you can no longer plow as you used, so you hoe weeds from the vegetable patch instead. When it rains, you sit in the barn, mending ropes or washing blankets by hand. In the chapel on Sundays, the priest now comes with incense and small smoldering coals. The hospital bell rings out across the fields. On Easter morning, you are allowed to the chapel outside the gate. With cross and bell, you stand apart from the main congregation. Villagers drop coins into your bowl, but keep a respectful distance. Afterward, you join a procession through the orchard behind the church, carrying a holy crucifix as the priest blesses spring seeds. Your body's wounds continue to heal more slowly. Over months, your fingers numb one by one, the nail beds blackening before the nail falls off. The sisters bandage ulcerations daily. One finger, cold and stiff, is already less useful, forcing you to adapt. They give you new tasks. You begin to spin wool from the hospital's loom or carve wooden crosses for novices. You find you have time now to memorize Psalms by heart, reciting Psalm 23, "Though I walk through the valley of death." Each dawn before waking, you still pray before the little image of Saint Lazarus stitched on a corner of your robe. You pray for mercy, but not in abject fear. You have grown accustomed to this life. None of the brothers or sisters ever scolds you for your disease. They treat the itch and pain as part of daily routine, like a shepherd tending an old sheep. The only time you feel rebuked is once a month during confession. The visiting priest asks, "Do you bear your cross in patience?" You answer softly, truthfully, that you do your chores and pray each day. At communion, he gives you a small silver coin for the poor box with a sad smile, as if to say you are not forgotten. When anyone here sees you flinch from the winter chill or touch your red wounds, they only lay a gentle hand on your shoulder. Sister Imelda often lingers a moment at your side, humming a simple Marian hymn, or quietly offering an extra swig of fortified wine she saved from the holiday ration. Outside these walls, you sometimes sense a faint loneliness. Once, on a rare holiday, The gates were opened by the caretaker for a moment of worship at the village altar. You approached quietly with others, bell and cross in hand. Just before the priest elevated the Eucharist, he lowered his gaze and murmured under his breath, "God have mercy on you." It was the only prayer of concern uttered over you since you arrived. In your heart you thanked him. Otherwise, you consider this hospital your world now. Occasionally, news reaches you from home. Your wife has married a distant cousin to care for the children and farm. The bailiff is an old man now. One or two families from the village still leave a small offering at the gates on All Saints' Day. These stories are told quietly by Brother Martin when he visits the kitchen, so you never know if they are true or well-wishing. Years pass, winter and summer come and go behind these walls. In spring, you help prune the orchard and plant cucumbers among the rails. In summer, you take baths in a wooden tub. The brothers fill it and heat water. You scrub your sores with rosemary oil and a scrape of soap. The women bind your wounds with chamomile and honey. And some mornings, you thank them for each little cream that brings relief. Autumn you spend in harvest again, this time pulling turnips and apples as the others store them in the cellar. Peering down a ladder into the dark root cellars, you catch smells of cider fermenting and apples gently rotting for pig feed. Time has hollowed your body. You know this in a slow, practical way. 3 toes on your left foot went numb and turned black last winter. And now, your left shoe is forever a size larger with cloth padding. Your nose, once so strong, has been softened by sores. A sister slips you a linen kerchief to cover it when you step outside, so the wind won't grip your cheeks bare. Each morning your hands are rougher and quieter. Where once you could finely thread a needle, now fingers shake. Yet you remain content in routine. You meditate on the new devotion of the sick. Each day you kneel with the others and pray, "I love the house of the Lord," though the house now is this poor stone chapel. Occasionally guests come. A nobleman on a pilgrimage drops a coin into your bowl and asks for a blessing. You touch the cross pinned to your chest to bless him. The poor priest taught you how. And the bishop once came in visiting garb, surrounded by an escort. He listened silently when you told him through a translator that you were the manor's plowman. At the end, he made the same prayer gesture and slipped you a silver penny. These events feel no different than past harvest fairs. You nod your thanks and continue. Finally, one late afternoon, a dozen years after you first awoke to leprosy, a terrible cough seizes your chest. The firewood you carry from the woodpile feels heavier. You hear yourself coughing through the night and startle at your own rasp. When dawn breaks the next day, you know it is your time. You do not cry out or call for help. Instead, you dress and join the morning prayers as always. Guillaume, the man you worked with long ago, catches your eye and nods understanding. Sister Imelda's there and she sees your pallor. After prayers, she slips an earthen bowl of warm broth to you and tips honey into it. Her face is kind, eyes glistening. Without words, you sip the broth and feel warmth in your belly. At sunset, they lay you on a pallet in the cell. The others wheel your bed to the chapel's far wall so you hear but do not occupy the prayer circle. 2 sisters anoint you with oil and herbs, reciting softly. The priests and brothers adjust your cross on your chest. Your eyelids are heavy. No candlelight remains except the stub on the altar. It casts flickering shadows on your face. You do not fear what comes. In a final moment, you thank God inwardly for each season of your life. You murmur the words, "Domine, exaudi orationem meam," and then the words your father taught you when he faced a storm. When your breathing stops, the chapel is still. The fire burned low. Others stand quietly at the bedside. Guillaume closes your eyes with a gentle hand. Sister Imelda crosses herself and grips the wooden railing. Dawn is near, but you will not see it. They prepare you as best they can. Your body, so worn, is wrapped in a simple shroud. At first light, the brothers carry you out on a plain stretcher. In silence, they stop at the boundary wall and circle the cemetery. One brother sprinkles earth on your head from his leather satchel, a final blessing. The chaplain chants a psalm. The little cemetery has only a few graves, each marked by a wooden cross. There is no stone memorial for you. A hastily carved cross is laid on your fresh mound. No grand procession follows. A small handful of mourners come. Gilam, two nurses who quietly cry, and one gentle old bell ringer from the village who counts them out beyond the gates. They stand side by side in the chapel courtyard as dawn breaks. They say the ending of the Mass quietly, their voices a chant in the morning air. Requiem aeternam dona ei Domine. Only the toll of the bell and the soft rustle of morning breeze accompany your final rest. They lift their shovels. 3 passes of earth, each slapping lightly, mark the end of your journey. When they step away, the chapel's little bell is struck once, a farewell. Then everything is silent. Beyond the low wall, life continues. Larks sing, dew forms on the cobwebs. The church bells ring the next hour's prayer. Within that quiet cemetery, your troubles and toil end with you buried under the dawn light, at peace from the affliction that claimed your body. You walk no more in fields of France, but are home forever in gentle earth.